What's up everybody, I'm Matt.
And I'm Beth.
And today we're going to be reviewing the interior in the 2020 Toyota Sequoia TRD Pro. So the Sequoia here has been around since 2008, and Toyota has done a couple of updates to it, and I talk about in my driving review how, you know, it drives and stuff. This is actually my first time reviewing a Sequoia, even though they've been around for 12 years now. So they did a couple cool things here on the outside here for the TRD Pro versions to make it a little more rugged here for 2020. And on the inside, there is one update to it, but everything else in here is very old.
Yeah, it all seems very cheap to me. There's a lot of plastic.
And not only is it just plastic, but it's also cheap feeling plastic. This is all like hard stuff. The elbow points don't feel very nice. This feels like vinyl out of like a, I don't know, a cop car or something. It doesn't feel very nice.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you get in like a Crown Vic taxi in New York or something. It's just a little unimpressive. But again, all this stuff is from 2008. They have not updated any of the materials or anything. Yeah, and another thing that just drives me crazy whenever I was driving around in this vehicle is just how this whole center area is completely shifted. It's like this whole thing is set up for the passenger, but like me as a driver, I have to like reach for everything. It's really bizarre. But anyway, we'll get more into that in a minute here, but first thing, sitting down in the seats here in the Sequoia, they are nice seats. This is one of the best things of the Sequoia because they're soft, comfortable seats, but there's tons of adjustment, at least for the driver here. Not only do you have your normal adjustments and power lumbar, but there's also a thigh extension here that will actually come out and give you more like under-knee support, which is very nice that it has that. So especially on long trips and things, or if you're just a larger person that likes having a larger seat, that's a really nice feature.
But for the passenger, you cannot go up and down, and once again, I don't like that. I feel like I'm sitting up so incredibly high. I am only 5'5", but I have like, I don't know, 5 inches till the top of
only a little bit of headroom there.
Till the roof of the car, and I think it's crazy. Anybody that's taller than me is going to hit their head. And yeah, there is a little moonroof here that might make a little bit of an indent in the height, but at the same rate, it's like, this is way too high to be sitting, and I don't know why you cannot put this seat up and down. You can do everything else, really, but like,
yeah, they should give you that adjustment.
Yeah.
And I mean, most SUVs, you know, they have really tall roofs and you have tons of headroom, but in this, it's like you really don't have a lot. So maybe not the best for, you know, tall people. So you'll definitely want to sit in one and make sure that, you know, you fit comfortably and it doesn't feel too crammed or anything like that. So yeah, but the seats though are heated, but they are not cooled, which is something that, again, of course, with a vehicle like this one, by the way, is $66,000 as tested. Clearly you're buying this because you want a V8, you want the towing capability, the off-road, body-on-frame, truck-based, you know, SUV, and Toyota is one of the few that still offers this. Otherwise, I mean, you can spend 15 grand less for a fully loaded Highlander with heated and cooled seats, a massive 12-inch touchscreen, everything else for $15,000 less than this. And it'll also get way better fuel economy, and I can go on and on. But obviously, there's still some people that prefer this, even though the Highlander sells way more. But, you know, I can see the appeal of this for those people who do like to tow and stuff. But it just means that, you know, you're not going to have any of the luxuries or any of the high-tech stuff. So you only have heated seats here, and that's it. Moving on to the steering wheel here in the Sequoia. It's your average Toyota wheel they've used in all the other truck and truck-based SUVs here. But they did update it for 2020 because you now have Toyota Safety Sense 2.0 as standard, which means you have adaptive cruise control with the lane keeping alert and all that kind of stuff. And so it has that here on the steering wheel, but otherwise it's the same wheel they've used again for a long time, but it's a good wheel. It has a nice 9-3 grip and nice little 10-2 notches. The gauges are also very dated, again, also look like they're about 12 years old. I think they did improve the little center screen here along the way at some point, because that looks like it's maybe only like 5 to 8 years old. It's not quite as archaic as the gauges, but the gauge backgrounds and stuff, it's all pretty dated and just your basic gauges there. That center screen that does have a little bit of information. You can show, you know, your fuel economy, all that kind of stuff, as well as your audio. So, I mean, it works. It's functional. Just, again, it's not going to wow you with tech like you get in all the newest stuff these days. Moving on to the center of the dashboard here, though. Well, the first thing I have to say is just look as I pan the camera across here. You have this massive chunk of plastic that's as wide as my hand, which is just useless. And then you have the air vent, which is also very wide. And then the screen all the way over here. And me sitting sitting in my driving position, I have to really reach for these volume and tune knobs. And they're also tiny knobs here on this new head unit that they installed for 2020, but it actually is a reach. Like, you have to like use the volume controls on the steering wheel when you're driving if you don't want to be distracted, like reaching over.
That's super dangerous. Like, you're not going to want to touch the screen at all when you're driving.
And I think with the older, like, you know, radios and stuff they used to have in the Sequoia back in 2008, you probably had bigger knobs, so maybe it was a little bit of a less of a reach than this, but now with this, it's just a little bit more of a reach. Not a big fan, so I would definitely suggest letting your passenger do all the adjustments for that.
Yeah, plus all the buttons too, right underneath the knobs, you have your phone button. If you want to call anybody on your phone and not use your steering wheel, it's gonna be really hard because this phone button is all the way on the passenger side.
Yeah, it's not great. Now, a couple good things about this infotainment system, since it is new for 2020. It does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto now, which is nice, and it runs the newest version of Toyota's infotainment software, so the same software you get in the RAV4, all that kind of stuff, is in this. That is great. It's just unfortunate that it's a 7-inch screen, so it's tiny compared to even a RAV4, which I think now comes with an 8-inch screen as standard, or you can go up to a 9-inch screen now with those. But so it's even, you know, the infotainment's even behind, you know, all the lowest Toyota offerings, and again, in a $66,000 vehicle. And there's plenty of space in this cutout to put a larger screen. I don't know why they went with this smaller screen, but I wish that was a little bit better integrated, but at least they updated it, because, you know, we just reviewed the Lexus GX, which has the screen still from like 2010 in those, and that was really bad. No smartphone integration or anything. So while this isn't great, this is still much better than what Lexus does in the GX. So I commend Toyota for at least updating this, because that was the big complaint in the GX, so they didn't update it. They did here. It's not a great update, but it is at least you know, giving you that functionality, which is the main thing. Unfortunately, you know, you have to focus on the little wins here in the Sequoia interior when it's something that's 12 years old. Anyway, though, coming down to the climate control knobs, all very large and chunky, and it's a huge contrast from these tiny little volume knobs and stuff.
They're really humongous. It's like you could have made those maybe half the size and made the screen a little bit bigger and all of those buttons bigger, but you know, at least you know what your temperature is.
Yeah, you can definitely change everything without looking.
Yeah, easy peasy, that's for sure.
So that's interesting, and you also have this little you know, climate control screen, which also looks kind of dated, but again, gets the job done just fine. But yeah, I mean, you're right. They could have, if they actually wanted to, you know, revamp this a little bit more substantially, it would have been very easy to put in, you know, the larger screen, no problem there. And then you get into the storage spaces here in the Sequoia, which are pretty good, especially considering, again, most vehicles 12 years ago didn't focus on storage space a ton. This was really good. So first off, we'll start in the doors here. You have a huge pocket. I mean, several pockets, honestly. It's like, I don't know, like 4 feet long, this pocket. It's huge, and there's 2 bottle holders in it. You'll also see another little pocket here in the door, which is a very unique thing that pops out. Feels very cheap, but nice to have another little pocket there.
It also, like, very much looks like an ashtray, to be honest. But, you know, there you go.
Well, 12 years ago, it could very well have been an ashtray.
Maybe it was,
and then they just got rid of that functionality since no one smokes in their cars as much anymore, and did that instead. But, so there's that. In the center here, there's another little slot. Not sure exactly what you'd put there, but pretty small, maybe a toll pass or something like that. And then you also have your 2 cup holders, as well as a third smaller cup holder behind it, which is unexpected but nice. And then you'll see this little like key holder slot here behind the shifter, and then this other little slot, which doesn't look like it does much, but you see this little thing here. You can lift this up, and then you can see it's actually pretty deep there, so you could you know, slide some type of you know, I don't know, smartphone or something in there.
Coins.
Yeah, anything you want. So I mean, that's a good depth, and so nice to have that. But again, all this stuff is so cheap feeling. It's like kind of crazy, but at least they have some stuff there. And then you have the center armrest, which again has some padding to it, but feels pretty cheap, but it's massive.
I don't think it's terrible.
But anyway, we open this up, and then you will see this massive thing that's about the size of a mini fridge. I mean, you have several different pockets. You have a power outlet in here. You have this thing you can remove for hanging files if you want to, you know, have like a full-blown, like, you know, file cabinet in here.
Yeah,
you can
if it's like a work truck, you can put all your files.
Yeah,
you know?
So that's kind of cool. You also have a tissue holder up here, map holder, pen holder, pencil, card holder, all these different holders that are actually labeled so you know what to do with all this stuff. But awesome, and you know, just a huge amount of space, so no issues there.
And on the passenger side, there is this big slot over here that you could fit a decent amount of things in. You can't lock it, but it is nice. It's just kind of like an extra glove box.
Yeah, so nice. I mean, like I said, overall, tons of storage spaces here in the Sequoia. So that is one thing that is 10 out of 10 as far as crossovers go. The back seat here in the Sequoia, well, of course, this is a 3-row SUV, and here in the TRD Pro version, it's only a 7-seater. So you have the captain's chairs there. You could go for an 8-seater if you go for a non-TRD Pro version of the Sequoia. But there's plenty of room there in that second row. We'll first start there. You know, so there's a little armrest there, and I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I have, I don't even know, probably like 7 inches of legroom to spare back there. I mean, tons and tons of space. And then whenever you look forward, you'll see that there is a power outlet as well as your climate controls there for the tri-zone climate control, which is good. There's also a flip down cup holder arrangement there, which is nice to have. But because this vehicle is old, it is lacking USB jacks. There are no USB jacks here beyond the first row. You know, up here you have 3 of them, but out in the back there is nothing. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but you do have pockets in those doors. And you know, like I said, just a ton of space in that second row, and you can also slide that second row up if you'd like, but you don't really need to, because moving on to the third row here in the Sequoia, it is really good. So first, there's a couple different ways to kind of get back there. First, there's a normal lever you can pull up. It would be nice if it was power, but again, we're talking about a 12-year-old vehicle. But there's a lever there, and it slides forward, and it gives you a huge opening. I will say that if you are going to use a third row on a regular basis, this definitely has much more room than the Highlander. And so I think, you know, the Highlander obviously makes a lot more sense for most people, but if you do plan to have, you know, a full carload of adults or something, you're going to have a lot more space in here than the Highlander. With the Highlander's third row, it's really only useful for kids and stuff unless you want to move that second row up. Whereas at this, you could have that second row all the way back, and I still, sitting in that third row, have about an inch or so of legroom to spare. Again, no complaints on space on, you know, me sitting in that third row with the second row all the way back. It's really impressive, but it's very easy to get in and out of that you know, third row, and also there's tons of space in the middle there. So much wider opening than the captain's chairs and the Highlander. So I mean, you can, you know, just easily breeze right through the middle of those captain's chairs if you'd like to get in and out, if you don't want to flip the seat forward. There's also pockets in that third row and cup holders, and there's also air vents back there. There's also air vents for the second row, but that's all on the roof. There aren't any dedicated air vents in the center console here or anything like that for the second row people, so it's all just up there in the ceiling. But now moving on to the trunk space here in the Sequoia, that is a little bit small, you know, but it's not too bad. I'd say just, you know, it depends on what you're comparing it with. You know, it's about the same amount of space as you have behind the third row in a Highlander, but of course it is a taller and boxier shape than the Highlander. So whenever you drop that third row, which is, by the way, a power folding both down and up third row, when you drop it all the way down, you'll see that it is a massive space. And even if you don't want to drop those third row seats down, you actually do have a huge bin that runs the whole width of that cargo space there, you know, behind the third row. So you have some hidden space there to store some extra groceries, things like that. And so a really good amount of space back there. The only other strange thing is that the tailgate has a couple cool features. First is that the rear window actually rolls down, so I can just hit this button up here and that whole thing rolls down, which is awesome, especially if you are a dog lover. I think that's what I've seen, is a lot of people with dogs love having their, you know, pets back there. They can, you know, enjoy the fresh air of having that window down, and it's a really cool feature. And you also see a power outlet back there too, which is nice. But the power tailgate, it's a manual open tailgate, but to power it closed, you have to like press and hold the button for like 3 or 4 seconds before it will actually start closing itself. So it does close automatically, but it doesn't open automatically, which is kind of strange. Usually they do both. Also, another thing that surprised me about the Sequoia here, though, is this JBL stereo. It's a JBL synthesis stereo, and it's 14 speakers. And listening to some jazz earlier whenever I was just filming this interior and stuff, it sounds really nice. It's actually got a good amount of bass to it. It was a pretty, you know, clear thing even for satellite radio. It sounded really good, and I was kind of surprised. Did not expect a 12-year-old, you know, SUV that's based on a truck to have, you know, pretty impressive stereo, but it does. And
yeah,
so
it's honestly pretty nice. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So that stereo, by the way, it is on, I believe, the Limited and this TRD Pro version. So it's only on the higher trims here, but yeah, I mean, honestly, and you can, you know, watch my driving review, I was pleasantly surprised with how this drives. I think it drives really nice, and you know, if you're looking for something that's going to be super reliable, I mean, yes, you don't have the highest tech in here or anything, a lot of it's dated and stuff, but it drives nice, it's really rugged, it'll run forever, and it has all the space you could ever want. And you know, if those types of things are very appealing to you, then you'll probably be willing to overlook, you know, the dated interior and all the other shortcomings of the Sequoia here, and you know, have all the, you know, great stuff that you get with the Sequoia. But anyway, let us know your thoughts on the Sequoia TRD Pro in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.